Hi there, this is Katie with Girl Scouts of Eastern Washington and Northern Idaho, and I'm going to go over the experiment called Disappearing Ghosts, which is part of our virtual spooky science event. So for this activity, there's only a few materials that you're going to need. One of those materials is a clear glass or cup. You can use a little vase or something like that. You're going to need some of the water beads. So these are the clear little bitty beads that we sent in your kits, and you're going to need some water. So for this experiment, I'm going to use, so this is a tablespoon scoop, and it's about maybe half full, maybe a little bit more. And that just goes right in my cup. And then I'm going to put some water in here until it's about 2/3 full. Okay, so I've got my water beads in there, and they're just sitting on the bottom of the glass. So the next part of this video that I want to go through is to show you what these look like after some time has gone by. So if you have not yet done this experiment yourself, I want you to pause the video, go set yours up like I just did, and then what I want you to do is to set a timer for about 5 minutes, and about every 5 minutes, check on your beads and see what they're doing. So this video is one, or this activity is one that is best done with observing them about every 5 minutes. So you want to spread out your time and come in, check on them every 5 minutes or so. So if you haven't done this experiment yet, pause the video and go set it up and do some observations. Okay, if you're still sticking around, I'm guessing you have done the video and you're ready to talk about or hear about why your water beads behave the way that they did. So to recap, this is the one that I just set up. So I've got my beads in there. They've only been sitting in the water for about a minute. The next few cups that I have set up, these are ones that I have that have been soaking in the water for a while. This one, the beads have been in there for about 10 minutes. So you can see they're expanding. There's some things going on. This one has been in there for about 20 minutes. And this one, the beads have been in there for almost 45 minutes. So this is the one that's been in there the longest. Now, there's kind of two science concepts that are going on in this activity. One is that we're experimenting with a material that's really, really cool for a few reasons. One of the reasons that it's very cool is that it's what we call hydrophilic. What that means is that it's a root word thing, right? So hydro means water, philic means love. So in science, we would say that these water beads love water. What that means for us is that they're made of a material that absorbs water. It takes water in, which is actually kind of unusual when we talk about scientific materials. So as they do that, there's some things that change with these water beads. One of the biggest changes, which I know a lot of you would guess right away, has to do with their expansion, right? Their size increases. As they take water in, their size gets bigger. From the ones that started little teeny tiny, right, like seeds, now, let's see if I can fish one out. They're a little bit bigger than peas. So they're getting quite big. Let's see if I can get a little closer so you guys can see it. It's hard to see because they're clear. There we go. So a little bit bigger than a pea. So these water beads are hydrophilic, so they're expanding, they're taking water in. The other cool thing that we're seeing here is there's some changes in how our eyes are viewing them. So the reason this experiment is called Disappearing Ghosts is if these ghosts sit for a very long time in the water, very long being about an hour, we should see them almost disappear. And I think that's true with the two that I have, right? There's these ones that are in, that I just put in there. I think they're still really easy to see, right? These ones are still, we can see that they're all sitting in the bottom. They're pretty easy to spot. When we look at the ones that have been sitting now for about 45 minutes, I think it's a lot harder to see the beads in there. And I want to talk about why that is. For these beads that have just gone in, there is still a lot of space between those beads. It's really easy for us to see them. They also have characteristics that are very different than the water. right? They're when they first go in, they're solid. They have a little bit of color, even though we know that eventually they do turn clear. So there's characteristics here that are different than the water, and that's really the key difference. So the way that our eyes see the world is they rely on light touching objects or hitting objects for our eyes to be able to interpret that. So when light hits substances, it behaves in a few different ways. It might bounce right off, it might bend, and that's what we see with water. If you have just a plain glass of water, water's clear, but we're still able to see it because of the way that light bends when it hits water. These water beads, if we think about the ones that have been in the water for a long time, they've taken in a lot of that water and they take on some of those water-like characteristics. They end up bending water or bending light in a really similar way to what the water does. So while the beads are not maybe totally disappeared, I think they've done a pretty good job of blending in with that water. If I let these sit for even longer, I would probably see them expand more. They would take in more of that water. And my prediction, my guess, is that I would see them become even harder to spot in the cup. So this is a really great experiment to learn about how light interacts with objects and to explore this idea that some substances have this characteristic where they take water in. They're hydrophilic and they love to take water in. So I hope that this was a cool experiment for you. One of the other really cool things about water beads is they're reusable. So when you're finished doing your observation, I've got a cup set aside that I did this already. I poured all the water out of these water beads. Number one, that makes them a little easier to observe. So they're really cool just to handle and look at. And then I'm going to set these aside and let them dry out, which takes kind of a while. And then they can be stored and they can be reused. So you can try and expand them again and see what they do. So we're using our resources wisely, and we're reusing substances to do some more science down the road. I hope you enjoyed this video and that I'll see you in another one. Thanks.